Okay, great. So primarily, before waving the design thinking flag, when you're trying to solve a problem, I think one of the things that is very important to note is what is the nature of problem that you're trying to solve. If it is something, which is well understood, the answers are obvious, and your users are a very limited population, then I would suggest not to go for a method like design thinking. However, if the problem is new, it has an impact over a large population, and uh, you have a cohort trying to understand the users and the user experience while trying to solve the problem, then I would suggest that it is a really nice design thinking challenge for you to take up. So, with that introduction, let us actually jump into the details. So, let us start with design. So, design is always not about making things look appealing or just about usability or even just delight, right? It is about taking products from being usable to delightful and then beyond that to meaningful to the users. So we must actually deliver deep meaning that we know people are seeking from the outcome when you talk of design. And design thinking is actually a really good way of coming up with a very good design. And this design could be for, a problem that you are trying to solve at home, at school, at college, or even in your professional life. Design thinking is actually a human centered approach to innovation. So, if you Google design thinking anywhere, this is most likely the topmost answer that you will get for design thinking. But what does it actually mean, right? It means meeting a user's need and desires in a feasible manner and in a viable way. So while we are meeting our users' needs, we need to make sure that that is something which is feasible and is also economically or technically viable when you are using it. So an early example, if you could think of design thinking, would be something like Edison's invention of the light bulb. This invention carried with it human-centered design ethos, meaning Edison was able to envision how people would want to use what he made, and then he engineered it towards that insight. So he created an entirely new marketplace for his product, the light bulb. And it was not just a single device modeled after preceding devices, right, of similar use. So when you are looking for something completely new to do, very creative to do, that is when design thinking helps. So let's look at something more relatable, right? I spoke of using design thinking for planning my family vacation. A product centric approach, which is a traditional way of looking at it, would actually have been to look at holiday calendars, look at the travel websites, choose a holiday destination, and book a trip. However, when you look at it from a human centric approach, what you do is focus on the end user goals. And who is the end user in this case? It is my family. And that will reveal that there are other needs and features in a vacation that will delight them. So at the end of the process, I ended up with understanding that yes, we are looking for a beach destination, but that should have some cultural significance. So my husband has something interesting to do there. It should delight my son. If we are able to play volleyball at the beach while we are there, and my daughter would be delighted if he could watch the sunset daily. So we went from choosing a beach destination to actually choosing a destination which could fulfill all these needs that that my family wanted to achieve. So moving on from the beach, the point that I'm trying to make is that design thinking is relevant for every one of us. All great innovators, be it in literature, art, music, science, engineering, or business, all of them have practiced it. And as students, there are innumerable problems that you can try to solve with design thinking. Like nowadays, I think almost all of you would be attending online classes, right? So how would we improve our online learning experience? Or how might my classroom be redesigned to ensure better safety when we start going back to college? And I'd really encourage all of you to use design thinking whenever you encounter a problem of this nature, which can be solved in multiple ways and can impact multiple lives. So hopefully now you have a better idea of what design thinking means in principle. So let us look at the specifics of what actually comprises of design thinking. So there are mainly 5 stages of design thinking. So many of us who practice design thinking would like to think of it like a loop like that you are seeing in the screen, where we start with empathize. So empathize is to understand the human context of the problem. And we will always come to the human context when we are talking of design thinking, because design thinking is essentially human-centered thinking, right? So then once you have empathized, you understand the human context, then you move to defining the real problem statement. So that is point 2 here, right? And then once you have defined your problem statement, we ideate as a team, collaborate with our team members, and look at wide range of options which are available to solve the problem. So at this point, we are not looking at a single solution for the problem that you have at hand, but we are looking for a set of solutions that you can look at to solve the problem, and then you prioritize them and to build a prototype. So once the prototype is ready, we will allow users to test it. And there we come to the end of the first cycle, which is the 5-phase cycle, right? And once the prototype is available and it is tested, then it again gives you another opportunity to understand the feedback from the users and to gain empathy for the users again you're designing for. And then the loop continues. Of course, the second time that you empathize, you are going to come up with a more well-defined set of feedback based on your first deliverable, and then you define a smaller part of it. And the loop continues until your users or you yourself, if it is something you're trying to solve personally, is satisfied with the outcome of this exercise. So the best way to actually explain this process would be to use an example. So since we're running this as a 1-hour session today, I will take you through an example where I've already created some artifacts and a problem that we will solve using and the artifacts that would come as outcomes of a design thinking exercise. However, during a design thinking workshop training, which you could attend, and Bewise is actually planning this, again using a design thinking methodology, right? We will actually get together and create these artifacts as outcomes for the workshop. And during these times when workshops cannot be conducted in person due to the social distancing norms, there are many tools available like mural boards that we can use in these workshops to collaborate and come together. So let us look at the problem statement that we will solve today. So before we go here, I am not able to see the chat window, but do we have any questions? Or if you have any questions, you could actually share it in the chat window and we could look at it later. In design thinking, when you look at us practice design thinking, think of it like a loop, right? Where we start with empathize to understand the human context of the problem. And then we move to define the real problem, and then items which are available to solve the problem. And once the prototype is ready, we should actually allow our users to test the prototype and provide feedback. which then gives you another opportunity to actually gain the empathy from the users, and the loop continues. And this loop continues till the time that you are able to satisfy what the users want from this exercise. Right? Use an example. So I have actually created a set of artifacts that would be outcomes of a design thinking exercise. When you do a design thinking workshop, at the time we will actually get together and get to create these artifacts ourselves as outcomes for the workshop. So this is the problem statement that I have defined. So the problem statement is of a company like ABC. They want to attract and retain young and new talent like all of their company. So to start with, they start to do user research. They look at the hopes and fears of the users who may actually be using this. So who could be, and the users here would be, people as students like you in college who would like to join the company. The outcomes that they want to see is something like that the company would like to know. They would want to map who is their target audience to the type of activities that you do today. And this will help them to get in the mindset of their user. That is, understand what it is that children who are completing college would want to do so that ABC is able to attract the new talent, right? So now we look at a user persona, and this is the user persona that this company ABC has zeroed in on. Her name is Anu. She's a fresh graduate in economics from Delhi University with a very good academics background. She's young, tech savvy like most of you are, and she's looking for career opportunities. And she's representative of the kind of talent that the ABC company wants to recruit and retain. So now we have the problem statement, that is ABC company wants to recruit and retain smart talent. And we have identified a user persona, Anu, who is the kind of smart talent that ABC company wants to retain or recruit. So let us go back to our loop now, right? And we start with empathize. So empathy is like a centerpiece for this human-centered design process, right? And to understand people, the context within which they work, it is very important to have empathy. It is your effort to understand the way they do things, why they do the things the way that they are doing them, what are their physical and emotional needs, how do they think about the world, and what is meaningful to them. So as a design thinking, the problems you're trying to solve are rarely your own. So they are those of a particular group of people. And in order to design for them, you must gain empathy for who they are and what is important to them. So let me try to show you a small video of why empathy is very important. Let me know if this doesn't work, then I can just take you through the story here.
Bro, that doesn't even make sense. It makes total sense. You just open up your mind and listen to other people's opinions.
Great.
What's going on here? What's going on?
John's being ridiculous. I'm being ridiculous. You're the one that thinks that. How can you not see?
Okay, boys, calm down. Okay, everybody take your seats. Matthew, John, come up here, please. And John, stand over there and face that direction. Matthew, come over here and just do the opposite. Thank you. Okay, boys, turn around. And John, what color is the ball?
The ball's white. Seriously? Bro, you just like making things difficult?
Well, what color do you say the ball is?
Black. The ball is black, clearly. I don't know what you see, Robert, but the ball is white.
Without looking at the ball, I want you to both switch places. Okay, both of you, please turn around. And what color is the ball now? Okay, please have a seat. Throughout our lives, we believe many things, and we hold dear what we think is right and true. But at times there'll be others who disagree with us. What we believe to be 100% right, they believe the opposite just as strongly. Well, how can that be? Can't they see? We can become frustrated, we might grow distant, we may even sever relationships entirely. Slow down. Breathe. Step into the other person's shoes. It'll make all the difference.
Bro, that doesn't...
Stepping into the other person's shoes and empathizing with them is very critical as a design thinker. So let us go back to our example of ABC company and Anu. When we step into Anu's shoes, maybe through user interviews or research, you will create an empathy map for Anu, like the one that you can see on the slide. And this is one of the first artifacts that we will have for a design thinking workshop. We will look at what Anu, as a fresh graduate, says, thinks, feels, and does. So if you look at what does Anu say, she's so looking forward to get a job offer. She says she must do something great. She's thinking of how her career will progress 3 years from now. And then we look at how she thinks and how is that different from what she's saying. She has her own apprehensions. She thinks, will this be a very technical role for me? What exactly does a consultant do? Does consulting actually suit me? Will I enjoy this? And these thoughts make her feel unprepared, stressed, worried, and yet enthusiastic and curious about the future. And what does she actually do? She applies to different consulting firms. She researches about various firms. She attends interviews, and she does, aptitude tests to make sure that she is, she is actually ready for this company. So now that we understand Anu fairly well, let us look at defining her needs. This is all about bringing clarity and focus to the design space. It is your chance and responsibility as a design thinker to define the challenge you are taking on based on what you have learned about your user, in this case, which is Anu, and about the context. So this is actually an empathy map which talks about what Anu says, thinks, feels, and does, right? And Anu is the user persona whom the company has chosen, and she is the one who they are trying to attract while they are looking at offering jobs to graduates. So I will not go through all of this again in the interest of time, but I hope you can relate to what you would have heard me talk. So now moving forward, right? So we understand how Anu is saying, what Anu is saying, how she's thinking, how she's feeling. So let us look at now defining her needs. So it is about bringing clarity and focus to the design space, what we are trying to do, right? And it is your chance and responsibility as a design thinker to define the challenge you are taking on based on what you have learned about the user, who is Anu in this case. The goal of this phase is actually to craft a meaningful and actionable problem statement, which we also call a need statement. This should be a guiding statement that focuses on insights, the needs of a particular user or a composite character if you have multiple users that you are looking at, right? And one of the best ways of doing this is using the 5 whys. 5 whys is actually an awesome technique to use to get to the core of a person's belief and motivation. Sure, you may feel like a 4-year-old asking why every time a person answers your previous question. But if you stick with it and give the person you are interviewing the time, the space, and the permission to really go deep, you're likely to wind up with a few key insights. So if Anu tells you that she is unprepared and stressed, your next set of whys can actually elicit what her apprehensions are. Then by asking why 5 times, you will get to some essential answer to a complicated problem. This is a great method to use if you're trying to get to the human and emotional roots of a problem. And you could try it even outside design thinking, right? If you are facing a kind of situation where the person in front of you is actually telling you something which you did not expect, then actually asking a why 5 times, generally proven that it will get you to the root cause of what the issue is. And in this case, the ABC company ended up with a need statement for Anu, which was that Anu needs a way to understand and determine career options so that she can do what she loves to do and she enjoys her job and career experience. So now we move on to the next phase. Now that we have a need statement, we need to ideate. And ideate to find problems, multiple problems to the issue or the. So ideation is your chance to combine the understanding that you have of the problem and people you're designing it for with your imagination to generate solution concepts. And this is where the creative streak in you should actually kick in. Particularly early in a design project, ideation is about pushing for widest range of possible ideas from where you can select, but not simply finding a single best solution. So the best solution will be discovered later when you do user testing and feedback. But here, in a brainstorm, you will leverage the synergy of the group that you're working with to reach new ideas and by building on others' ideas. And collaboration is really key at this stage. And let us look at what the design thinking team working with ABC company has come up with. They have come up with these big ideas for fulfilling Anu's needs to ensure that they are able to recruit her. So you can see that these ideas are across multiple areas. They are across the company experience they will provide to Anu, the recruitment, internship offers that they may have, the research that they may do, and each of these try to address Anu's need statement, which is she needs a way to understand and determine career options so that she can do what she loves. So now you have so many big ideas and you need to prioritize. And you usually do it on a grid which maps the feasibility of the solution to the impact that the solution will have on Anu. So I have actually drawn this priority grid for Anu. Okay, so what I've tried to do here, and this is called a prioritization grid. What I've tried to do here is actually put on this grid the big ideas that you saw in the previous page, which I hope you did manage to see. So what happens is, you actually map these big ideas against the feasibility of having these ideas, implementing these ideas, right? So how feasible is it for ABC company to have these ideas implemented on the ground in their company? And what is the impact that that idea has on Anu? So we actually map it in this way, and I've actually done a prioritization grid here, where you will see that I have marked them out as 3 different sets. One is the obvious choice, right? So these are the ones which are least expensive and most impactful. So it tells that maybe you offer to Anu that she is able to follow an existing employee of ABC for a day. That will give her an idea of what a consultant actually does, right? And what is if she will be able to enjoy that kind of a job. That'll have a high impact on her decision to join or not. At the same time, it does not cost much to ABC as a company to implement it. And then you have some tough choices. These are choices where you need to invest. The ABC company will need to invest so that they are able to get out a brochure, give her an internship, participate, allow her to participate in an ABC event or things like that. But we will focus on the big bets here, which make a strategic differentiation to Anu. And then you have ideas that you can ignore, either because they are of low impact to Anu or because they are too expensive and not feasible for ABC to implement. So the grid will actually give you a good idea of where you need to focus on, right? And then we come to the prototype phase. So in this prototype phase, this is actually an iterative generation of artifacts intended to answer questions that get you closer to your final solution. So it will consist of creating small prototypes of like offering a brochure page to Anu so that she can look at it, or bringing her to a event that is already running so she understands what this company does and what she would be expected to do, and things like that. So the prototype can actually be anything that a user can interact with. It could just be a wall of post-it notes. It could be a gadget or a demo that you put together. It could be a role-playing activity, or it could even be a storyboard. So ideally, you bias towards something a user can experience. So walking someone through a scenario with a storyboard is something good, but actually having them role play that through a physical environment that you have created will likely to bring out more emotions and responses from that person. And in this human-centric approach, that is what we most want to do. Actually understand what the emotions are after they have experienced the storyboard or experienced the prototype. So let's look at the prototype that the design thinking team actually created for the ABC company. And this is how a real storyboard looks. It actually walks Anu through the series of steps that she will take before she becomes a happy ABC employee. You can actually take a user persona, could be one among the multiple students who would have applied for the job opening in ABC, through the set of activities and find out which are the ones which are most impactful and which are the ones that you should actually be implementing in your final solution. Ideally, once the storyboard has been created, then you come to testing that storyboard, right? So testing is actually an opportunity for you to get feedback from the solution from the user. So when you solicit feedback about the prototypes you have created, you have another opportunity to gain empathy for people you are designing for, which means that you actually tell her that we will allow you to follow an ABC employee for a whole day so that you understand what we do as ABC as a company. And maybe the user response would be, oh, I know what you do, and I really know what your employees actually do. But what I'm trying to find is, am I a fit for your company? So I would better be able to better do it if I'm able to shadow somebody who is doing the exact consulting role in your company. This will make you figure out that actually getting her to follow any ABC employee, right, is not the right way. She wants to go be a consultant. So I need to identify a consultant whom she can shadow for a day, for a week, to understand about consulting. So testing actually gives you an opportunity to get this feedback and to iterate your solution so that it better meets the needs of the user. And here you will also have the opportunity for framing the problem in a much better way. So ideally, you can test within a real context for the user's life. For a physical object, you can ask the people to take it with them and use it within their normal routines. For an experience, you can try and do a role play or create a scenario. And again, the feedback that comes from here loops back into the next empathy phase. And you continue till you're able to address the user's need. So we come to the end of the 5 phases of design thinking. And this entire exercise will continue till your user tells you that, yes, you have met my requirement and we can stop now, right? And that is where, while we are in this prototype and testing phase, I want to end with this picture, right? This drawing has gone viral in the last few years, and I'm sure many of you may have seen this. The drawing really captures the essence of an iterative and incremental development, a lean startup or a minimum viable product that many may talk about. But all of this actually starts with the design, the approach used for design thinking. This picture is actually a metaphor. It is not about actual car development, but it is about product development or solving a problem in general, using the car as a metaphor. So the problem is that Alex comes and tells you, I want to go from point A to point B faster. So if you looked at it in a conventional approach, did not look at it from a human-centric approach, we will conclude, okay, Alex needs a car. We will start working on producing the car. And that is what you see in the top row. The intermediate deliverables that you see, like a single car tire or 2 tires and an axle, are not really useful to Alex at all. And once he comes back, after two weeks, after 4 weeks, after 6 weeks, and what you show, really disappointed and angry till the last stage where the complete car is delivered. And that is because whatever we have built so far is really not useful to him at all in any way. Now let us look at row 2. Here, this is a very different approach. We actually start with the same context that Alex wants to go from A to B faster, and we assume he is looking at a car, right? But this time we don't just build a car. No, we don't just take the components and start building the car. We actually focus on the underlying need of the customer, which is that he needs to go from A to B faster. And of course, car is the possible solution for that. But when he comes back at the end of week 2, the team delivers the smallest thing that they can think of, which is a skateboard. And that will get the customer testing. So Alex will start testing and giving us feedback. Some call it a minimum viable product, but I prefer to call this the earliest testable prototype. Alex is unlikely to be happy with this. Of course, he asked for a car and you're giving him a skateboard, but that's okay. The kicker here is that we are not trying to make Alex happy at this point. Our main goal is to just learn what he actually wants. Does he want a car, or is it something else he's looking for? So we tell Alex, don't worry, the project is not finished. This was just the first of the many iterations. we are still aiming to build a car, but in the meantime, please try this and give us feedback. And this goes on. End of week 2, he gets a scooter. End of week 3, he gets a cycle. End of week 4, you give him a bike. And then he comes back and tells, I thought I wanted a car, but I think this bike is better because the route from my home to my office is actually a very small lane, and I can get there quicker using the bike rather than the car. So that is when you stop building, right? So it's about thinking big, delivering in small functionality, viable increments. And this is what the design thinking approach actually enables us to do. So, while the car was a metaphor all along, this is something that you can really use in all the big problems that you try to solve, so that you do not over solution what the user wants, right? You get to exactly where the user is satisfied and he has got a meaningful product in his hand. So, as I come to the end, what you saw was just a sneak peek of what the design thinking will help us to achieve. This slide, which I have, will show some real artifacts of a design thinking workshop. And when we have a longer design thinking workshop session, we intend to cover this kind of a workshop for a problem statement that you would like to solve. I am done with what I wanted to share with you on design thinking as a start. But if we can take some questions if you have any.
Yeah, sure, guys. I have unmuted you all.
Everyone, you're free to ask your questions. Please do.
Any questions, or you were really not able to get the concept clearly? Any feedback on what you think of design thinking? Have you heard about it before? And what do you think, do you have any areas where you think you could use it now?
Ma'am, could you please throw more light on the concept of 5 whys?
Okay, yeah. So when you are faced with a user, right, who wants to, who tells you something which is unpredictable, which you've not really predicted, or which you think is against what you thought that person would tell you, then what happens usually is we get a little taken. Okay, I need to think about what could be the possible reasons myself. But what is being found in research, and we do this a lot even in software development, is we try to find out what the root cause is by asking 5 whys, right? So if for instance, in this case, right, Anu tells that I am not sure if consulting job is what is fit for me. Then you probably ask, why do you think that, Anu, right? And then she may tell you that, oh, I'm not a very technical person, and I think consulting is need for technical people, right? Then you would ask, why do you think consulting is for technical people? Maybe she would give you an answer which is something like somebody told her, right? And then you go to the next why, till you, at the end of it, you understand that the root cause is because Anu hasn't understood what a consultant does in a firm. So ask as many whys as you want, and research says that in 5 whys, you should get to a root cause of any problem that you're asking that why for. Does it
Okay,
help?
thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, sure, completely.
We are open to questions, guys.
Anyone who's used design thinking so far? Go ahead, Shefali. Okay. I think we don't have any other questions, Harivansh, so maybe you can take over.
Yes, ma'am, I don't think we have any more questions. Khushi, I think you can go ahead.
Ma'am, on the behalf of the whole Baywise team, we would like to thank you for conducting this webinar since you have a very busy schedule and we took a lot of your precious time. So ma'am, we would really like to thank you and extend our gratitude towards you for this webinar and enlightening every single one of us with such amazing knowledge about design thinking, since we haven't used this concept before and people aren't even aware about this. So they're like now in a new light, yes, they can, you know, solve problems with a different way and a different approach. So we all thank you for enlightening us with that. Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you for having me here. And I think all of you should actually try it someday. And then you will actually, when you try it, you will understand what benefits design thinking as an approach brings rather than the traditional approach. So all the best for all of you. And have a good
Thank you,
evening.
ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.